It was never about the abs. In a quiet town just outside Asheville, North Carolina, there's a mechanic named Joel who's never posted a gym selfie in his life. No six-pack, no Ferrari. But somehow, women still linger just a little longer when he speaks. Why? It's not charm. It's not smooth talk. It's boundaries. Unspoken, steady boundaries, like the kind you find carved into the Appalachian earth. What truly pulls a woman in isn't how much you give, it's how much you hold. Let's talk about 8 masculine boundaries that don't push her away. They draw her closer. And if you stay till the end, you'll discover the one boundary that doesn't just protect your heart, it redefines hers. 1. The unavailable advantage. Time as a flame, not a flood. In the old part of Austin, where the streets still carry the scent of cedar and worn leather, there's a man named Mark who lives by rhythm, not reaction. He's the kind of man who wakes before sunrise, not to scroll, but to think. He drinks his coffee slowly, reads old science fiction novels, and loses himself in lines of code as if they were poetry. And he doesn't answer every text. Not because he's playing games, but because he's playing a longer game, the one with himself. The one that says, my life has structure, my hours have shape, and if you step into this orbit, you'll need to find your rhythm too. There was a woman once, Clara, spirited, radiant, always reaching. She sent 3 messages in one morning. He replied the next day, gently, warmly. Missed this yesterday. Was deep in something. He didn't offer more, and that absence, it didn't repel her. It stirred something ancient in her chest. Curiosity, longing, respect. Because when time isn't tossed like confetti, it begins to shimmer like gold. She told him later, months into something real, you never chased me. You never flooded my world. You made me want to step into yours. That's the truth most never learn. Constant access is not love, it's erosion. It wears down the mystery. It dilutes the moment. But a man who guards his time, who doesn't flinch at silence, becomes something else entirely. A place to arrive, not a thing to consume. Reflection. When your time is sacred, so is your presence. And the right woman doesn't resent that boundary. She honors it. Because deep down, what she really wants is to earn her place in a world that already matters. 2. The no apology rule. Say no, mean it, breathe. Minneapolis in early winter has a way of slowing things down. The streets frost over, conversations linger longer in cafes, and the quiet between people says just as much as their words. That's where Eli lives, a man whose job demands both fire and calm. A firefighter by trade, but more than that, a man who's learned how to hold the line, in flames and in life. One Friday evening, a woman he'd just started seeing texted him, "Last-minute thing, come with me to this gallery party." He looked at the message, then looked at the clock. His shift started at 6 a.m. He didn't overthink, didn't scroll through excuses. He just typed, "Can't tonight, got an early shift, hope it's a good one." That was it. No paragraphs, no apology, no softening of the truth. She didn't reply right away, but the next time they saw each other, she said something that stayed with him longer than she probably meant it to. "You saying no like that made me feel safe." See, most men believe saying yes keeps the peace, that pleasing her means protecting the connection. But what they miss is that women don't feel safe with men who bend like reeds in every breeze. They feel safe with men who know their roots, who choose their rest, their health, their purpose, and don't tremble when the word no needs to be spoken. Reflection. Saying no isn't about pushing someone away. It's about staying true to the rhythm of your own life. Because every time you apologize for needing rest or clarity or space, you teach her that your needs are negotiable. But when you say no with grace and steadiness, you don't lose her. You earn her trust. 3. The respect reflex. Call it calmly. There's something about Savannah in the evening, when the air hangs thick with magnolia and the city whispers in Spanish moss, that makes every word matter just a little more. That's where Bryant lives. A man with calloused hands, an independent spirit, and a coffee shop he built from scratch in the quiet corner of a cobblestone street. He met her at an art show. Smart, sharp, the kind of woman who knew how to draw attention without demanding it. Over dinner, the conversation danced through everything: music, ambition, regrets. Then, in a half-laugh, she said, "You're still running that little coffee shop. Must be tough keeping the lights on." Bryant didn't flinch. He didn't snap or joke it away. He simply put his fork down, looked her in the eye and said, "Let's not go there." No anger, no wounded ego, just a man fully rooted in his worth. She blinked, caught off guard, but not offended. Something in her shifted. The playfulness faded, and what replaced it was respect. Not because he shamed her, but because he showed her where the line was. That's the quiet power most men forget they have. Disrespect doesn't always come dressed in cruelty. Sometimes it slips in as teasing, sarcasm, tiny jabs with pretty smiles. But when a man lets those moments slide, when he laughs them off instead of standing in them, he doesn't seem easygoing. He seems unsure. Reflection. You don't have to raise your voice to raise the standard. You don't need to scold her, you just need to hold yourself. Because the man who calmly says, "That's not how I'm spoken to," becomes more than a date. He becomes a mirror, showing her what it feels like to be in the presence of someone who honors himself. And that kind of presence, it lingers. 4. The calm test. She doesn't want to break you, she wants to know you won't break. There's a little jazz bar tucked in the heart of downtown Denver. Dim lights, worn leather booths, the kind of place where Miles Davis still lingers in the corners and conversations feel like slow dances. That's where James goes. Not for show, not for company, but for quiet. He's a carpenter by day, works with his hands, thinks in measurements, but lives by something deeper, steadiness. One night, a woman slid into the booth across from him. Bold eyes, quick wit, the kind who tests before she trusts. Midway through a second round, she leaned in and asked with a smirk, "So, you still live with your mum?" She expected defensiveness, maybe embarrassment. Instead, he smiled, sipped his bourbon and said, "Just me and my dog now. He snores less." She laughed, not because it was clever, but because he didn't flinch. She didn't want to break him. She wanted to see if he'd break. See, most men meet fire with fire. They bristle, they bark, or they shut down, but not James. He stayed present, like a river stone in a storm. And that calm, it spoke volumes. Because beneath every sharp question, every jab cloaked in flirtation, is a woman wondering something much deeper. Can you hold me when I'm messy, when I'm moody, when I'm more storm than sunshine? Reflection. Your reaction teaches her who you are under pressure. When you stay grounded, unrattled by the tease, unfazed by the test, she sees more than confidence. She sees stability, a man who won't run when things get real. And in a world full of sparks that burn out fast, that kind of steady flame is what she'll remember and return to. 5. The authority silence. Say less, mean more. On the wind-beaten coast of Oregon, where the cliffs meet the sea with quiet defiance, Matthew lives in a cabin just past the pines. He's a nature photographer, the kind who hikes for hours before dawn just to catch the mist kissing the wild lupines. His days are measured in light and silence, not screens and chatter. One Saturday, a woman he'd been seeing sent a message. "Busy week, want to meet tonight?" He read it while editing a photo of an eagle in flight, wings outstretched against a lavender sky. He replied simply, "Can't tonight, let's try Sunday." No apology, no flurry of reasons, no shrinking. And here's the thing, she didn't pull away. She leaned in. Because authority isn't loud. It doesn't rush to fill space. It doesn't soften every no with a nervous paragraph. It just is. Most men explain themselves out of fear of disappointing, fear of being misunderstood, fear of seeming cold. But what they don't realize is that every over-explanation chips away at something sacred, the strength of their word. Matthew's silence wasn't cold, it was clear. It said, "I have a life, and I honor it." And when a man honors his own time, others do too. She later told him, "You made me feel like your time had weight, like I was being invited, not absorbed." Reflection. You don't need to justify your decisions. You just need to make them with presence. Because the man who speaks with clarity and lets the silence breathe after becomes more than a moment. He becomes a memory. And in a world full of noise, the man who says less often speaks the loudest. 6. The mission first code. She joins your world. She isn't your world. Phoenix has a way of testing things. Roots, resolve, relationships. It's dry and vast and unforgiving. And that's exactly where Nate found his vision. Not in a boardroom, not in a plan, but in a forgotten lot behind a run-down church where weeds had won and hope had long gone quiet. That's where he started. One garden bed, one pair of gloves, 1 hour every morning before work. Neighbors passed by with puzzled glances. Then came the volunteers. Then came her. She brought lavender seeds and quiet strength. She showed up with iced tea and ideas. And though the chemistry was instant, Nate never dropped his shovel to chase her. He welcomed her, but he never made her the mission. And that, more than any grand gesture, is what made her stay. Because most men, once they fall, they shift. They bend their goals, cancel plans, rework their entire direction to orbit someone new. But Nate kept showing up for his garden the same way he showed up for himself. And slowly she realized she wasn't being asked to carry his world. She was being invited to walk beside it. That kind of purpose, it doesn't threaten love. It makes space for it. Reflection. A woman doesn't want to be the thing you abandon yourself for. She wants to be the one you grow beside. When a man lives with mission, when his days have fire and his path has roots, he doesn't need to convince her. His life becomes the invitation. And when she sees that, she leans in not to be everything but to be part of something already alive. And that kind of love, it doesn't fade. It flourishes. Bonus 7. The no-fixing rule. Hold, don't patch. Chicago was soaked in rain that night, wet pavement shining under traffic lights, thunder whispering somewhere beyond the skyline. David sat on the floor of his apartment, back against the couch, legs stretched out. His girlfriend sat beside him, knees pulled to her chest, mascara streaked like watercolor on her cheeks. She was unraveling, quietly, powerfully, and everything in him, the part raised to solve, to fix, to protect, ached to say something, anything. But he didn't. He stayed. He didn't reach for logic or advice. He didn't say, "It'll be okay," or "You're overthinking it." He just breathed beside her, present, still. A lighthouse in her storm, not a rescue boat. Minutes passed, then longer. Her sobs softened into silence, and without looking at him, she whispered, "That meant more to me than anything you could have said." Because that's what she needed. Not repair, not correction, just presence. Most men confuse strength with solutions. They think love is proven through plans and quick fixes, but emotions aren't leaky pipes, they're rivers. And sometimes, all a woman needs is someone willing to sit on the bank and watch the current with her, without trying to dam it. David didn't heal her that night. He did something far braver. He didn't run from her pain. Reflection. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need a 5-step solution. You need to stay. When she's spiraling, when she's cracking open, when her emotions are louder than her logic, don't silence them. Be the space where they can land, because a man who doesn't panic in her storm becomes the shelter she never knew she needed. Bonus 8. The Mystery Principle. Let her discover you. New York moves fast, heels clicking across marble floors, coffee cooling in paper cups, lives unfolding at the speed of breathless ambition. But Ben moved slowly. He was the kind of man who ordered one drink and nursed it all night, who asked questions more than he answered, who smiled but never rushed to fill silences. On their first date, he didn't talk about where he'd served, didn't mention the medals, the field hospital, the scars that didn't show. He asked her about her art, her favorite books, what songs she played when no one else was around. By the 4th date, she knew something deeper lived beneath his stillness, but he didn't offer it. Not yet. Then, one evening, in the quiet of her apartment, she opened a drawer looking for matches, and found them, tucked in a shadowed box, bronze and ribboned and heavy with silence. He didn't explain, just looked at her and said softly, "Some things deserve quiet." And she cried, not because he kept it from her, but because he trusted her enough to reveal it when the moment was right. In a world where men rush to overshare trauma, bank balances, philosophies, broken dreams, Ben chose restraint, not out of fear, but out of reverence. He knew his story wasn't a business card. It was a cathedral, and not everyone gets a key to the sanctuary. Reflection. Mystery isn't about withholding. It's about honoring your life as something sacred, something she must walk slowly into. When you leave room for discovery, you give her the gift of wonder. And in a culture where everyone's soul is on display by date number 2, being the man who unfolds gently is not only rare, it's unforgettable. Closing reflection. Set the frame, let her rise. Every boundary whispers something. I am here. I am not afraid to be whole with or without you. That doesn't repel women. It invites them into a dance, one where she doesn't have to shrink to fit you, but rise to meet you. You're not chasing love, you're inviting it into a world already in motion. So, which boundary spoke to you? Comment it below. And remember, don't explain the fire, just let it burn.